Hi everyone, Sandman here. I've been watching the media coverage with regards to Elliot Rodger, and I'm sure that many of you have as well. I've had at least 4 requests to do a video about him, and Ronaldo sent me a donation asking me to cover this particular topic. So I've decided to give everyone my opinion with regards to Elliot Rodger. In case you missed it, Elliot Rodger was a 22-year-old man from Santa Barbara, and then he decided to go on a killing rampage because not a single woman was giving him attention throughout his entire life. And the victims of the Elliot Rodger shooting include 4 men and 2 women. First he killed 2 of his roommates and 1 of their friends. And then he went to a sorority house where he was planning on going inside and killing all of the women. Luckily, when he knocked on the door, they didn't let him in. So instead he killed Catherine Cooper, Veronica Weiss, and Christopher Martinez. Then he went off and randomly started shooting at people on the street, as well as in various stores, until basically his car was crashed by the police, and they found him inside, dead of self-inflicted gunshot wounds. And one more thing, Elliot Rodger was a feminist. You heard me say it right, a feminist. Do I need to prove that he's a feminist? Of course not. All I have to do is say that he's a feminist, and people will believe me, right? Feminists are claiming that Mr. Rodger was an MRA. Did they have to prove it? Of course not. As soon as his story broke, feminists started saying that Elliot Rodger was an MRA, and they claimed that Elliot was an MRA because he was a member of the website PUA Hate. But Elliot Rodger was not a PUA. He was against pickup artists and the PUA community. And since pickup artists have often been associated with MRAs and MGTOWs, does that mean he was against them as well? Well, the PUA.com website is a place that describes itself as the anti-pickup artist movement, because it believes that many so-called dating gurus and seduction artists are basically scammers, and that all they're after is money. But that doesn't seem to matter to the mainstream media or feminists. They want to take this story and twist the facts to target the men's rights movement. This is telling me that the men's rights movement is now on the feminists' radar as a threat. First they ignored the men's rights movement, then they started to ridicule it like in this video from Saturday Night Live. And I'm including a link to that particular sketch video so you can watch it and give me some feedback. And now they're attacking men's rights head-on and trying to say that it's directly related to mass murderers. They are basically stretching the connection between PUAs and MRA to a ridiculous level, and they're completely ignoring the fact that Rodger was against the PUA movement to begin with. This is like saying if someone joined a website that was against sexual abuse, simply because that particular website had the word abuse in the title, that would mean that that person would be for abuse. By that same logic and reasoning, if I joined a website called violenceagainstwomen.com, then I would be in favor of being violent to women because the word violence is found in the title. Feminists are seemingly trying to paint MRAs, PUAs, and MGTOWs, as well as any other term that means equality and fair treatment for men, and they're basically trying to tarnish it by saying that the very use of such words is evil. Most people in society don't understand the meaning of terms like MRA or MGTOW, and many of us know that feminists are incapable of winning a rational argument. So they're using guilt by word association, so to speak. They're not trying to attack men's rights directly, but they're trying to define it as an evil before society in large can understand what the term means. They are scared, and their behavior proves it. After the shooting rampage by Elliot Rodger in California, feminists are now claiming that he was part of the men's rights movement. But he doesn't fit into the men's rights movement or the MGTOW camp. If anything, he fits into the TFL or True Force Loneliness camp. I did a video about True Force Loneliness about a week ago, and some of the guys in that movement are angry and obsessed with conspiracy. At least that's the way I see it. I want to make it clear that I believe that True Force Loneliness is basically caused by feminism. And I believe that feminist culture has affected women and made many of them feel like they deserve nothing but the finest alpha males found in society. So in a way, Elliot Rodger was created by feminism. If the feminist revolution of the 1960s and onwards hadn't happened, I'm pretty sure that today Elliot might be married with a woman instead of trying to take his anger out on them. And I don't agree with his behavior, but I understand it. Women are becoming so guarded and think that men are lurking in the shadows trying to rape them, which is often not the case. And that means a lot of women are emotionally and physically afraid to get involved with guys. The female fear of men is a silent epidemic, and it's leading to an epidemic of loneliness in Western countries. One of the reasons I believe Elliot wasn't getting any female attention is because he was considered unattractive. I haven't seen very much mention about him in the manosphere with regards to him being thin and scrawny looking. And he looks really thin and not very muscular. And no one seems to mention that his face almost shows absolutely no emotional expression on it. You can visit his homepage, which I've also added in the description below, to know what I'm talking about. The scary thing is that in early high school, I was very similar to this guy. I was cold and emotionless, and basically had very little body language, and I was extremely skinny. It wasn't until I put 20 or 30 pounds of muscle that I started receiving female attention. He could have done the same thing and ended up looking like a brutish, muscular man that he often complained was always getting the women. All he would have had to do is basically put on about 20 or 30 pounds of muscle, and then he too could have looked like the brutish, muscular men that he was complaining about that seemed to get all the women. It's also claimed that Rodger was a member of MRA sites on YouTube, but I don't see it. Where is Karen Strawn or A Voice for Men? I don't see any subscriptions to MRA channels on his YouTube page. Just because he was subscribing to a few pickup artist YouTube channels does not make him an MRA. He's also subscribed to the Young Turks and Game of Thrones. So should we assume that those particular YouTube channels are also influencing his behavior? Should we now say that Game of Thrones is just as harmful to women as other things such as rape? The connection between Elliot Rodger and the MRA is basically non-existent. The last time I remember a man going on a shooting rampage specifically targeting women and feminists was back in 1989 in Montreal, Canada. Back then, a guy called Mark Lepine entered a university and went into a classroom and separated the men from the women and killed only the women. Back then, there basically wasn't a men's rights movement to blame for his actions. Mark Lepine, though, was anti-feminist. In his suicide note, he made a list of 19 feminists that he intended to kill. And I believe that he ended up killing 13 women in the Polytechnic University in Montreal. Who knows, maybe feminists will dig up this story as well and start parading it around. But imagine if Mark Lepine killed women today because of feminism, and it was linked back to the MRA and MGTOW movements. Can you imagine the type of backlash that we would experience here on YouTube? Let's just hope that someone doesn't do such a thing in the future, or they could literally shut down our entire movement. Imagine if feminists recruited a mangina to go on a killing rampage. The father of one of Elliot's victims says it's the NRA, or National Rifle Association, that's ultimately responsible for giving people guns, thus being responsible for the rampage that Elliot went on. It wasn't the MRA, or Men's Rights Association. It was the NRA, as well as the police. You see, Rodger's therapist and parents contacted the police to evaluate his mental state, and the police checked him out and basically let him go. So the proper precautions were taken. Ronaldo, the guy commissioning this particular video, wants me to bring up and analyze a specific paragraph from Rodger's 140-page manifesto. So this is basically what Elliot Rodger has to say. The ultimate evil behind sexuality is the human female. They are the main instigators of sex. They control which men get it and which men don't. Women are flawed creatures, and my mistreatment at their hands has made me realize this particular sad truth. There is something very twisted and wrong with the way their brains work. They think like beasts, and in truth, they are beasts. Women are incapable of having morals or thinking rationally. They are completely controlled by their depraved emotions and vile sexual impulses. Because of this, the man who gets to experience the pleasures of sex and the privilege of breeding are also the men who women are sexually attracted to, and they're often stupid, degenerate, and obnoxious men. I have observed this my entire life. The most beautiful women choose to mate with the most brutal men, instead of a magnificent gentleman like myself. Women should not have the right to choose who to mate with and breed with. The decision should be made for them by the rational men of intelligence. If women continue to have rights, they will only hinder the advancement of the human race by breeding with degenerate men and creating stupid, degenerate offspring. This will cause humanity to become even more depraved with each new generation. Women have more power in society than they deserve, all because of sex. There is no creature more depraved and evil than the human female. Women are like a plague, and they don't deserve to have rights. Their wickedness must be contained in order to prevent future generations from falling into degeneracy. Women are vicious, evil, barbaric animals, and they deserve to be treated as such. Well, that's the quote that Ronaldo wants me to share with everyone. The sad thing about Elliot Rodger is that he was a man that couldn't accept becoming a man going his own way. He was on the cusp of self-actualization and becoming a MGTOW, but I think the biological imperative and his sense of entitlement was too strong for him to go his own way. and true forced loneliness was basically too much to bear for him. If only he had found this channel, or Barbarossa's, or Stardust, or Spetsnaz's. Maybe he would be here talking to us today, and he wouldn't have had to do the terrible things that he did. His words show how conflicted he was, but there is a kernel of truth in what he says. Our civilization is basically spending 80 to 90% of its resources propping up a consumer culture that is mostly based on female satisfaction and status, or men buying things to impress women. If we diverted those resources elsewhere, away from consumerism, and towards more fruitful endeavors, we would be making far more technological progress, as well as enriching the lives of everyone. I also find it incredibly ironic that his father was the assistant director in the Hunger Games, because the overconsumption of the planet and our consumer society is going to take us in that direction one day soon. I also find it kind of ironic that when men's rights groups meet, they are the ones that need protection from feminists, and not the other way around. Feminism is desperate to stop true equality between men and women. They want women to remain victims in the eyes of society, now and forever. But things are never static, and the pendulum has swung to the female side for almost a century now. And I can see it swinging back to the male side in the future. We are on the verge of some major changes with regards to male-female relations. Anyways, that's all I've got to say for today. Thank you, Ronaldo, for your donation, and thank you everyone for taking your daily dose of red pills. So enjoy the rest of your day, and cheers.